It's our friend, the Noobifier here. He stops by usually on Friday mornings and chills out with us. Shout out to my friend Noob. He's got a video. It says, is Chris Roberts worried about StarField? I don't know. I don't think so. Let's see.
So I thought long and hard about what to call this video, and I think that this title is perfect. I don't think it's baity at all. You let me know. Hello YouTubers, this is TheNOOBIFIER. As a fan and follower of the continuing drama, which is the pre-alpha development of Star Citizen, I do like to play other games. I know that there are some purists out there who only play Star Citizen. That's fine for you, but that's not me. I find it great to take a break and dump into another title because there are too many people making too many other great games for me just to focus on one incomplete title. I do like...
And you know what the crazy thing is that he has to like announce this ahead of time to his audience, because primarily his audience is mostly Star Citizens. Primarily, most of my audience is Star Citizens as well. But the thing is like, I don't feel like Noobifier should have to feel like he has to give this preamble and say that like, I like playing other games. I mean, we all like to play other games, for God's sake, you know? And I never understood. I don't want fans that are only gravitated here because of Star Citizen. I want fans that are coming here to have a good time, like everybody here right now in chat. I want fans to come in here because they got a home here. They can chill out. They can have a good time here. And we just so happen to play Star Citizen and other games, StarField, whatever game that you guys are into, man. Like, I'm actually like, just like you, sitting down, a gamer dude, chilling out, having a good time, watching it is what the algorithm's putting in. You're the algorithm, spelled with rhythm, a little dance in there. And you guys find amazing things to watch. And I love that. And every week I sit down with you guys and I have a good time with you guys. And so like, to me, to hear Noob give this preamble about like, okay, you know, I do play other games. You know, like, listen, Noob, if you're watching, dude, fuck it, man. Just don't even give the preamble. Don't worry about it. Just be yourself, dude. Just be yourself. Don't worry about it. If you lose people, they weren't there for you anyway, right? I feel like I'm right about that.
Like sim and shooters, but I do like me a good first-person RPG like Fallout, Cyberpunk, or Borderlands. The gameplay may be fun, but what really gets me invested is those world-building, lore, character, and story. I backed Star Citizen for the PU, and yes, of course I'm going to play Squadron 42 whenever it releases. On today's topic, is Chris worried about StarField? We should compare CIG against a more conventional game studio. By doing so, we will come to the conclusion that they are not the same, that they do not operate the same, and they do not have the same requirements.
Right.
So we'll say that Bethesda Studio and CIG began working on their games at the same time. We will say that both companies estimated that it would take $300 million and 10 years to make the game. That $300 million may not happen all at once because of staffing and offices, but that will come from somewhere. Bethesda either allocates its own money to the project, or they take out a loan, or they get backing from another corporate entity. The pressure is on from day one to deliver, not only to the fans, but the ticking clock that is money. The investment and promises have legal contracts, and missing these, regardless of the reason, will have a cost. CIG's crowdfunding model means that they do not have to invest their own money, they do not need to take out a loan, and they're under no pressure from any other corporate entity, except for that South African dude. Due to the transparency, there's perhaps more pressure to deliver from the fans, but there's no ticking clock from money, just a ticking clock from any deadlines that were promised. CIG really has no personal investment because of the funding model, and they're not legally liable for missing deadlines, even if doing so will result in a wave of frustration and drama. And we've seen no matter what happens, the funding keeps going up. So to answer the question, is Chris worried about StarField from a corporate perspective? No, I don't think so.
Here's the other thing as well. If Star Citizen delivers on its promises or even gets close to it and it becomes successful, and Squadron 42 also, and the money comes in from Squadron 42 regardless, I got this in. I got in for this, for the PU experience, just like Noobifier. I want Squadron 42 to be a success. I don't know if it is or not, but I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not a solo play guy, generally speaking, but I like the way he builds his games. I like how Chris approaches single player games. He takes it as a choose your own adventure, you know, replayable as hell. All of his games have always been replayable, which is great for a solo play game. I can't tell you how many titles out there that are solo play, and it's like I put like 8 to 10 hours in it, and it's like, nah, done. You got a game that's replayable because you can change what happens in the game based upon your choices, and all of a sudden the solo play experience is much more enriching. I enjoy that out of my solo play games. Chris, he doesn't have a deadline, just like Noob said. So if this game becomes successful, if this actually becomes a thing, right? I say when it becomes a thing because I believe that it will. And you know, I've been with it this long. I'm going to keep backing it through the ups and the downs. I mean, that's how we got here. We just talked about that on a prior highlight. I do believe that this game is going to hit an end point, and that it will change the way that gaming is funded forever. In fact, like the whole genre of game funding is going to be fan funded. If this one really rips, I mean, 500 million is pretty ripping in my opinion right now. It's proving that it's a valid model right now, not even being finished. But to the gamer, we want to make sure that, in fact, with a title like this and this much revenue, with 500 million revenue, we want to make sure that this, in fact, goes all the way so that we can look at this and say, this is an example.
Whatever else you kids are doing on social
What's
media.
up, Zach? Grab your chicken soup. Welcome to the fam, dude. So that we can look at this as an example and say, yes, this is a crowd-funded game that is one of the biggest that has done it. And we can say, wow, okay. And the industry's worried about this. The AAA title, the AAA publishers are very worried about this form of funding because it basically spits in the face of all AAA publishers, which is great. I love that. I want that. I think the industry needs to die. It's the legacy way to fund your games. But that time element, that's the one thing about this new era we're getting into on fan-funded, game-funded, crowdfunding that we're getting into is the time, the variable of time. Because you could look at that and say, well, if there's no time, how is this thing ever going to get finished, DG? And that's a great, excellent question. You got to look at the developers. You got to look at who's behind it. To me, I've seen so many different videos of Chris Roberts. You know, he's a failure. He's a great guy. He's a bad guy. He's a greedy guy. He's a, he's a bad boss. He's a great boss. I've seen so many different videos with Chris Roberts. I know one thing about Chris Roberts. In the 90s, this motherfucker made games that I played, period. He made games that I love to play. We're talking Wing Commander, Freelancer, Privateer. There was like title after title, all because of Chris Roberts. So I have a track record. I understand this man made games that I liked back in those days. My line of thinking is this. He's the type of dude, he's going to see it through to the end, no matter what the end is going to be. But I'm going to be here for the journey. And man, it brings back that 90s nostalgia. I already know he can do it. You're going to see videos about how he's a great producer. You're going to see videos about how he's a shitty producer. You're going to see his movies. You're going to laugh at the movies that he did do that were horrible, like Wing Commander with the bulldozer on the top of a space shuttle in zero gravity that somehow magically attaches to the ship to take wreckage off of the spaceship. You're going to hear about the Wing Commander movie, right? You're going to hear about but then you're going to hear about Lords of War. Which was awesome. Nick Cage, give me a break. Are you kidding me? Come on. It's the Cage, man. And so there were some good ones too, right? It's a mix. It's a milieu. Okay? So I kind of dig this. He's shaking up the industry. Anyway, let's go, noob.
StarField might actually create more love for space sim RPG in general, and basically that would be buttering up gamers and making them more interested in trying Squadron when it releases. Squadron is still a blip on the radar compared to a AAA game made from a AAA company. I'm not saying that there are not millions of people watching and waiting, but I will make my point this way. The most viewed video on the
Gator! That's such a young DG in a parallel dimension right there. It's crazy.
The subject of Star Citizen is the Imagine trailer, which is a fan-made Star Citizen-inspired video. It was published on the 19th of December, 2004.
1 second. Aether's requesting that I look at his last 2 comments, which say the really successful games will stop being business products and start moving more toward artistic expression. I like that. I like that. Then Aether says, I think that the answer to games will get finished has already been answered. Live service. You let the players play as you develop. Okay, I like that as well. I like that, Aether. Can I get a name in for you?
You're not gonna hate me.
14, and in total has 2.3 million views.
I see you guys in chat.
For comparison, the StarField original trailer from 2 years ago has over 17 million views, the one from last year has over 5 million views, and the one from 10 days ago has 2.5 million views. Bethesda needs a clean launch, and they need to hit their release date or it hurts their company.
I love you, Sketch.
CIG also needs a clean launch, but they actually don't need to hit any release date because aside from the work and time invested by its staff and perhaps the 1 or 2 people who bought a stake into the game, they won't be hurt. This funding model removes the ticking clock, and the past deadlines backfired badly, so it makes sense that they don't and shouldn't release any more deadlines. There's no reason to. People are still paying. Single-player games come and go regardless of how good they launch and regardless of how big they are. Off the top of your head, you can go down a list of games that came out in the last 5 years. You've watched all of the big streamers hype, play through, and then they die off.
Yes, but in order for it to be truly a good solo game, it has to have that replayability factor that I was speaking about, which is why replayability is so important on a solo game, because it gives it life when it's dead over and over again. And there's a couple titles out there like that. But yeah, the noob is right. Eventually they just die out because you've done everything you can do.
Hype is sustained longer for other game types which can generate a larger fan base.
Which frankly is why I like sandbox MMO style games, because I feel like the dynamic events that happen between players in the game will always be different. And that's why I love MMOs in the classic sandbox sense. Because I can't predict what you're going to do when I see you in the game. I don't know what you're going to do. What are you going to do? Uh-oh. Oh, you are? Oh. Oh.
But the reality is you can watch Captain Richard or TV Liquid play through any game, but you wouldn't tune in if they only played Borderlands 2 or if they only played Diablo or the Old Republic. The same will happen with Squadron 42. 1 or 2 playthroughs at maximum, or perhaps every other Friday, you'll have a stream devoted just to Squadron 42. Repetition will eventually take over as people have seen it over and over or have played it over and over themselves. It'll release and it'll disappear with a huge bubble, which is fantastic awareness and would be a gigantic chunk of vindication for this project. There will always be those haters who call it a scam, but if Squadron 42 launches clean and delivers what was promised, you could easily always counter by just saying, yeah, it was late, but it wasn't and isn't a scam. I have some interesting things for you to consider. The more time we spend perfecting the game, the better, and that's obvious. But what if the motivation isn't to finish the game fast, but to pause at the correct time? Releasing Squadron and StarField at the same time is dumb. CIG might actually be aware that no matter how good Squadron is, StarField still has a larger following. It's too late to launch it before, but I actually think that Chris has been moving the release date waiting for something else. It's a bit of a joke at this point how every single free fly coincides with a horrible time to play Star Citizen PU. Many will say that the low performance is due to the free fly, but I can also see this as the desire to wow and impress with new features. New features at the release of a new patch in CIG's desire to hype things is for them to show what's been done, and that is exactly the right time for a free fly, in their minds. Now we should escalate this 10 magnitudes and evaluate what would happen when Squadron releases. People's minds are blown by the story, game, and cinematics. Millions of people see and play, and then when all of that is done, they'll go play the PU. So let's say we have invisible enemy clipping through the floor, an MMO that has a player cap of 100, NPCs that T-pose on tables, missions that cannot be completed because they're broken, 150 non-flyable ships, and 1 out of 100 planned star systems released. So Chris will see Squadron not only as a game, but a massive advertising campaign for the PU. Squadron will sell. CIG will make a ton of money, and that'll be great for the company because unlike StarField, all of this money is pure profit. Because CIG didn't need to front their own capital, they didn't need to take out a loan, and they really have nobody to pay except for that one South African investor that we heard about 5 years ago. If you think CIG has missed deadlines due to...
And a couple other VCs under the covers that nobody knows about as well, I'm sure. Like we talked with Booch, I've talked about this before, from was it Sunk Cost Fallacy. And he was an early VC who pulled out, and he said there were other VCs. It was a good interview. You can check it out on my channel. So there are other VCs involved at the very beginning of this before the Kickstarter happened, at least according to Bucha. I do happen to believe him on that. Why wouldn't you bring in VC money? It's not like a conspiracy at all. It's a company that was trying to pull in capital, and they just found Kickstarter, and they found a way to crowdfund it in such a way that it crashed. What was it? Within the first couple hours, the whole site went down, and then they had to relaunch, and they did basically everything on their own site. So it's quite interesting to see this whole development in all the various stages that we've gone through on this. It's ridiculous. But I do think that the Squadron 42, the main purpose of Squadron 42 is to make sure that the flight experience is top notch, right? The physics, everything that's happening in the game, the character modeling, the animations, all the very basic physical things that happen in a game are top notch, right? And what Noob's saying is, if successful, I say when successful, the money is coming in. It's all free. There's no other money attached to it other than the VCs that are in this. It's all just money that comes in. And, don't think there weren't a lot of expenses for it, because there were. Talk about all the actors. Mark Hamill. Who else was in there? Oh, dude. Oh, the chick from Scully from the X-Files. Oh, my Gillian Anderson. Oh, my God. Please. Don't even get me started talking about Gillian Anderson. We'll never get the show finished.
To mismanagement, I would say
Maybe
no,
we'll
that's not possible. And I believe after thinking about all of this and how it would unfold,
right, Gary
it now makes
Oldman,
perfect
Reese
sense.
Davies.
Chris is not worried about StarField, but eventually Squadron 42 will seem
Henry
more like a
Cavill,
last
right?
gen instead of a next gen game. It has to come out soon, but despite everyone...
By the way, these are expenses. These guys were already paid, and they're probably getting a little cut and a little slice from the game as well. Maybe. I don't know how Chris structured the deal, but these people were paid. These are the whole reasons why the dude in South Africa had to put the money up, because they needed that VC money after the fact. I remember that. Was it 2018? I think it was like 2018, 2019 when that happened. I can't remember the dude's name, but I got all the financials on the channel. You can check it out. I've been tracking it the whole time.
Everyone thinking Squadron is holding back the PU, it's actually the other way around. The PU needs to be better, more polished, more fleshed out, with pyro, functional meshed servers, persistence, missions, medical, law, bounty, and systems to explore. These all need to be ready for the millions of new players. If you thought the little uptick during a free fly was funny, wait and see the joke when the servers get blasted with a tsunami of interest. I should end there, but I want to talk about transparency, missing deadlines, and the release schedule. Answer the Call was 2016, and that was already 2 years later than the original proposed release date. We all know that scope and scale grew, and this accounts for the missed deadlines, and this is why the funding continues to grow with no known plan aside from the Gantt chart and the bi-weekly updates from Jake. We know Chris loves a good show, but I also know that the last thing CIG needs to do right now is to hype a deadline and then miss it again. So I ask you a question, and this is where you can get involved. Let's say at CitizenCon, Chris announces that Squadron will release on whatever day. That could be Christmas, in the spring, next summer, whenever, and it doesn't actually matter. The media might go crazy and run a story. The media will also focus on the negatives with questions like, can Chris finally deliver? Will it miss another deadline? Positives and negatives both hype. And then CIG would pay money to run commercials, and they make the game available again in the store perhaps for $80. The release comes and goes. As planned, it's a perfect launch, and here's another way of doing that. Let's skip the announcement. Let's have no dates, no announcement, nothing. You log in one day and the launcher is there after it's patched itself. There's a new tab that says Install Squadron 42.
Woo!
Again, no info up until this point. Let's say this happens to Captain Richard. They tweet about it, they install it live, and people rush to their systems to play and experience.
I bet they'll go that route. I won't be surprised if they did that. The thing is, dude, look how they're making all the different game modes now. They're expanding upon the game modes to kind of put us in this section where they can work on the meshing that they need to do. But Arena Commander now has all the new game modes and maps and everything, and they kind of put that there. And now, talking about this stealth launch, I like this. I like this. I wouldn't put it past them. I think that'd be a cool as hell way to go about it, personally. Just put it out there, right? And then boom, you download it and you just see it ignite, You know, that would be like, I think personally, that would get more press than anything else. Put a 1 in chat if you agree with me on that. I personally think that's the way to go, man. Ninja the shit out of that.
Squadron 42 for themselves. The media runs the story,
Right.
and the buzz is even
That'd be
larger
cool,
than if
dude.
the date was
That's
announced.
old school
We don't have
right
any
there.
negative stories because there it is. It's launched. New citizens arrived to play based on the hype, and yeah, I think
Right.
this would be how
That's a
I
good
would like
idea.
to have Squadron 42 launch.
Same.
No
I
announcement,
agree.
it just shows up.
I totally agree with them.
So now it's up to you. You have a very big job. Comment in the comments with your comments
They
about
most-
the following. 1, do you think
Yeah. Like, you know, in the business world, they're probably going to do what Aether is going to say, which is hype the shit out of it, then release it like everything else. But damn, how fucking pimp would that be if they just released it stealth? I'd respect them on a whole new level if they did that. I'd be like, wow, that's pimp.
that StarField has Chris worried? 2, do you think that CIG is planning to announce the release of Squadron at CitizenCon this year? And 3, how do you feel about my proposal of a stealth launch for Squadron? Remember that all of the scenarios that I propose are under the assumption that there will be a clean launch, and after 10 years, let's assume that that's going to happen. All of the profit, prosperity, and vindication relies on that clean launch and a stable PU to capitalize on that
Sketch,
momentum.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you don't need any server meshing for Squadron 42. It's not going to be involved or need servers to run. There, I don't believe there's a co-op to it. At least last I checked. I don't think there's any co-op play. I think it's just all solo play. There's not going to be any server meshing needed for it. Exactly. I just think it's kind of cool how they're upgrading the game modes to Arena Commander, and I think because they've been talking about doing that to divert everybody into those spaces to have better experiences, so they're not having such shit experiences in the PU. I think since they can add it like that to the beginning, to the menu, they could do the same thing like Noob is talking with like a stealth launch. I think that would be cool.
For spending your time with me. The video only makes sense when more people watch it, so I would ask if you found it interesting, please share and discuss wherever that makes sense. StarField is looking pretty sick, and my hope is that Squadron will be worth the wait. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.
Yeah, like when it comes down to it, I got into this for the PU, not for Squadron 42, you know? Right. Sketch says co-op would be nice, but even if it's 4-player co-op, it's not the same as a 200-person server. Right, dude? Like, I'm always for, like, sandbox experience, MMO experience, as many people as I can get sharing the same experience with me, man. PU is the reason I got in. Put a 1. I'm curious, actually. How many are in Star Citizen because they wanted the PU versus... Okay, put a 1 for PU and put a 2 if it was for Squadron 42. I'm kind of curious, whereas I'm going to see people, there's PU, Triple's trying to be different. Wook Street, there's a 2. Coob got in for Squadron 42. Coob! And then Coob says, now I want 1. Wait, Coob, damn it, Coob. Now Luigi's a 5. Okay, now we're talking maths. Now you guys are getting, god damn, I can't keep up with this. This is worse than my algebra class in 9th grade, for God's sake. I can't even deal with this right now. Stop it. You guys are going to get that projector on the board and with your crazy little wet markers, and you're going to start doing equations, man. Don't even put that up. I don't want to see equations. Guys are giving me nightmares watching this chat right now. I just had a simple question, and I'm getting algebra up in here. What's going on? By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, please press the like button. You know, search around a little bit. If you like the channel, perhaps become a member. You know, you have chances to win in giveaways. Support the channel. Lots of variety here. Lots of variety. Lots of cool people. Just do it.